Please be advised that this episode may contain triggering and/or sensitive material for survivors.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Hope Discovered podcast by ComQuest. My name is Bill. If you are a new listener, what we try to do here is share stories of hope. And most often, these are recovery stories from mental health issues and addiction. With us today is Jack, and Jack is going to share his story. And what we always try to do here is get across the idea that recovery is possible. And so often in society, we hear stories about how bad the addiction problem is and other things, but these can be overcome. And for anyone listening to this program, we want you to know that recovery is possible. Jack, first of all, thank you very much for coming on our program today.
Thank you, Bill.
You're very welcome. And Jack, now you and I both work for ComQuest.
Correct. I work out at Wilson Hall.
Tell us just a little bit about yourself when you're not working at ComQuest. What do you like to do? Are you a music fan, or what's some of the things you like to do to unwind?
Well, I'm 50 years old. I've been in recovery for almost 4 years now. My idea of relaxing is actually music. To me, there's nothing better than just turning on some headphones and cranking up the music. It gives me motivation, and it just relaxes me.
Sure, yeah. Music can be absolutely a fantastic therapy, I guess. If you need to relax, you can use music to relax, or if you need to pump yourself up, get some Enter Sandman or something like that, and you're good to go, right?
When I first got into recovery, I had to walk everywhere for a year due to my own actions, and my phone and headphones became my lifeline. It's what gave me the motivation. Some of the songs and some of the artists who are actually in recovery that people don't know about, those songs just gave me motivation like you wouldn't believe.
That's a fantastic angle. I'm glad you said that. That's very interesting that artistry was an inspiration and a help to you. Let's talk a little bit. Are you from Stark County? Are you from this area?
Yes. I was born and raised in Canton. I went to Gibbs Elementary, Bellstone Elementary, Woodland Elementary, and then Crenshaw and McKinley.
Oh, okay. So you're a McKinley guy too. I went to McKinley as well. What were your early days like during that? Did you have brothers and sisters?
I am my mom's only child. My dad does have 5 or 6 other children who are my half-brothers and half-sisters. Growing up, I really didn't spend much time with them because I lived with my mom, grandma, and grandpa. I tell people our house was kind of like all in the family. My grandpa was Archie Bunker. My grandma was Edith. And I was Michael, my mom was Gloria, and me and my grandpa had kind of a rocky relationship, but he was just trying to do the best for me.
Yeah.
In school, I was a straight A student, and I actually had perfect attendance all the way up till 9th grade. There was a big poster, an article about my perfect attendance. Until 9th grade, at our 9th grade honor dance was when I took my first drink. And after that, I barely graduated high school.
Wow. Well, it's interesting that you mentioned that you were more or less an only child. I was an only child as well. My wife and some of my past girlfriends have said that I have only child syndrome, meaning I don't like to share things. And you know what? That's probably true. My dad, however, was very strict. He was afraid I was going to get spoiled. Right. And going back on my childhood, there were times when that was a very good thing because I wasn't an ornery kid. And he kept me in line. But by the same token, though, I do feel that he stunted my development a little bit. I was kind of afraid to have fun at times.
Right.
So you and I have a number of things in common there. Now, you mentioned that your problems with addiction began in the ninth grade, essentially, and you went right on to say you barely graduated. So, what were those years like?
Up until the ninth grade honor dance, I was strictly focused on school. You know, I had plans, I had ambitions, and then my first drink was at our ninth grade honor dance. I got thrown out of the dance. And after that, my life for the next 35 years was drugs and alcohol.
Wow.
I barely graduated high school. Basically, I spent my time in high school partying.
35 years. When you got out of school, so obviously any work, any career, how was that impacted by your addiction?
I always worked. I very rarely missed work. I needed to work to keep my addiction going. For the most part, at one point I had worked same company for 15 years. And I just tended to hide it a lot.
Yeah.
I thought I was hiding it.
Yeah.
Everybody else knew. I've been married and divorced 3 times. All my wives knew that I was an alcoholic and an addict. It was mostly alcohol. My kids knew. My mother knew. My mother used to pray that I would get help. And it got so bad, she told me that she actually started praying that I would just die. And I don't mean that in a bad way. Just so that I could end my suffering, because she saw it through the years. I was actually in rehab when I was 17 years old. I went through Glen Bay 30-day inpatient adolescent unit out in Massillon Community. And then I was back there at the age of 18 years old. And those were basically, it was my mom trying to get me help. To me, it was so that I could get a high school diploma, because that was the deal we cut. If he gets help for his alcoholism and addiction, we'll give him his high school diploma. Mm-hmm. But I started treatment when I was 17 and 18 years old. I remember sitting in St. Joe's at AA meetings as a kid, and, you know, just the smoke filled everywhere and all these mostly older guys. And I thought, well, I'm not an alcoholic or a drug addict. I'm not these people. I would hear them talk about how they lost their wife and their house and their kids and their jobs. And, well, that wasn't me. It wasn't me yet. I was 17 at the time. And I left both times thinking, well, I know, I'm smart. I know everything about how this works, and I can control it. And it wasn't until 2016 when I made one effort to try to get sober and clean that I probably then actually admitted to myself I was an alcoholic and a drug addict. But then it was in 2017 when I just broke down and said, look, I'll do whatever you people tell me to do.
Yeah. I often, that's a recurring theme when people talk about, I was having issues, watching other people have those same issues. That wasn't me.
Right.
Do you have, I don't want to say advice, but is there a way that if you could go back in time and raise a red flag, if everybody has the problem but you might want to look inward. What would be that trigger that you wish you could go back in time and recognize that sooner?
Probably the first time I took a drink, because to me it is a disease. I watched, other kids in high school party on the weekends, and come Monday morning they were back at the books. Me, come Monday morning, it's the same as if it's Friday night.
Yeah.
And if I could go back, I'd go back to that first drink, because to me it's a disease, and that's what triggered everything else after that. Once I had that first one, it triggered the disease in me.
Yeah. I will ask this, and I know this may be somewhat of a difficult question, but here again, there's a relatively common theme when I talk to people. Very few of them just woke up one morning and said, you know what, I'm going to get better. It just doesn't happen that way. There's usually some significant event, whether it be losing their job or getting into trouble, and something significant has to happen. We often refer to it in these discussions as I finally hit rock bottom. Mm-hmm. And I knew that I either have to correct this problem or something very bad is going to happen. Did you have one of those moments, and can you maybe tell us a little bit about it?
Oh, absolutely. Like I had said, in 2016, I think that's when, for the first time, I decided everybody's right. I do have a problem, and I need to go get some help for it. So I actually came to ComQuest and went through the IOP program. And once again, when I was done with it, I thought, well, I know everything. I can control this now. I'm a big believer in AA, and step one tells me I can't control this. I am powerless. But I tried to control my drinking, limit it, and just like any other time, it didn't work. But in 2017 then, I had, the last day I drank was May 2nd, 2017. The article in the newspaper reads, alcohol found, more than coffee found in gun-toting man's coffee cup. And I was driving down the road, 4 times the legal limit drunk. I was waving a loaded gun at people. Needless to say, the courts and judges and police officers don't like that.
Sure.
As I look back, though, I just pray to God that I didn't hit a bump. Mm-hmm. If I would have hit a bump that day, I could have killed someone.
Wow.
You know, killing me is one thing, but this family, I have no idea who they were. I just didn't like their driving. And I pulled into the gas station, half the sheriff's department sitting there, and they had bigger guns than I did. Mm-hmm. And I wasn't out to hurt anyone. When I drink, I do stupid things, my actions.
Yeah. I
spent quite a few days, roughly 2 months in Stark County Jail. And then I was blessed, and I say blessed, with meeting the Honorable Judge Frank Frashoni. Mm-hmm. Him and Wilson Hall are 2 of the places that I attribute to saving my life.
Yeah.
I remember standing there in an orange jumpsuit. I was shackled and handcuffed. And the first question he asked me was, what possesses a man to drive down the road waving a loaded gun at people? And next thing you know, I was on the floor, and I was at my breaking point.
Yeah.
And I said, Your Honor, I am an alcoholic and nobody will help me. I tried to get into Wilson Hall in 2016, but I had private insurance and they wouldn't pay for it. Mm. And the next sentence that came out of his mouth was, Mr. Hoover, I'm going to get you the help you need. And he did. Mm-hmm. I went to Wilson Hall. And I went in August 31st, 2017, and I lived there for 90 days. Mm-hmm. And then when I left, this time I did what people told me to do.
Yeah.
And I realized I can't control this anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, I just couldn't. A year ago, I was in the newspaper again. This time the headline was Recovering Addict Says Get the Help, where I'd spoke at the drug symposium for Frank.
Yeah.
And the man saved my life.
Sure.
Him and ComQuest, to be honest with you.
Frank is an incredible man. Obviously, a great judge, well regarded. We've had him on this program. We've had him do a number of things with us. And absolutely, he's been someone who really has got out in front of this very quickly, right. And he's done an incredible job.
I just remember standing in jail, looking in the mirror, thinking, how did this happen?
Yeah.
How did I get this bad? I was facing felony charges. I was facing prison time. And I just kept looking in the mirror every morning saying to myself, this isn't me.
Yeah.
But it had been so long since I had been sober, I couldn't even remember me anymore. But I knew that wasn't me. I wasn't one that was, I could have killed someone that day. And that was my biggest fear, not for me, but for that family.
I can feel the emotion in you when you talk about it, and that's interesting that you talk about your identity and you say that wasn't me, because one of the subjects that I often bring up is a stigma. And being in the marketing department, before COVID, I did a lot of in-person things. We did events and so on.
Right.
And occasionally, I'd really have somebody come at me. It didn't happen often. Maybe a lot of people were feeling it but didn't say anything. But I would have people say, these people made a choice.
Mm-hmm.
And in regard to my son or daughter now, especially with COVID, I've lost hours at work, or I've lost my job through no fault of my own. And I can understand to a point where a lot of that's coming from, but the path to addiction very seldom is somebody in a country of 300 million people, anything is possible. But the idea that somebody just got up one morning and said, you know what? I'm going to party myself into addiction. It just doesn't happen that way. And speaking of stigma, so many paths to addiction involve, in Ohio anyway, obviously prescriptions were a part of that. You have people who are indoctrinated into the lifestyle through family and so on and so forth. You have a lot of people who are victims of abuse. You have a lot of people who have co-occurring conditions such as mental health. There's a lot of things that go into addiction. And in your case, it was just that one moment, that first taste. What would you say about the subject of stigma and how quickly this can happen to you? Just like so many other things can happen to you quickly, whether it's gambling, food. Most people don't make a decision, as they say, to get overweight. It happens. And how would you address the stigma that addiction has?
So the stigma is one of the things that I try to fight to get rid of, because you do get the people who say they chose this path. I didn't choose to be an alcoholic or an addict. Like I've said, I see people take one and put it down. I can't do that. Mm-hmm. I've seen, high school, when I was in high school, they said, man, it's time to grow up and get a job and get a wife and, have babies. And me, I said, man, I'm just getting started. I chose to pick up that first drink, as many people do.
Sure. I
didn't choose to have this disease. I've listened and watched enough to honestly say I believe it is a disease. The American Medical Association lists it as a disease. You can go on and on about it. And people hate this comparison, but it is true. Somebody who has cancer didn't choose to get cancer. Well, they smoked their entire life. Well, maybe they have cancer and they were a non-smoker. Whether it's hereditary in the genes or whatever, the point is they ended up with cancer. I ended up with the disease of addiction. There's an organ, the organ is defective, and that then in turn has consequences. Now, I know that if I have cancer and I leave it go untreated, I'm pretty sure I have it, but I'm not going to go to the doctor. I'm going to die from it. I have the disease of alcoholism and addiction. For 35 years, I left it untreated, and I pretty much almost died from it. Mm-hmm. I go and get the treatment that's needed, And cancer or diabetes, every day there is a treatment. Every day, whether it's watching what you eat, taking insulin, taking medication. I have the same with alcoholism and addiction. Every morning I get up, there are certain things I have to do. Sitting right here right now is one of those things. Believe it or not, you might not know what kind of day I'm having, and I may have walked in this door wanting to relapse, but this is part of my treatment, sitting right here right now, because it's keeping me sober and clean. As long as I do my treatment the same as if it was cancer or diabetes, my disease is in remission. The minute I stop, just like with cancer or diabetes, my disease is back full force.
Yeah.
And that is the way I look at it, as a disease. For those who sit there and say, oh, that, somebody gets diagnosed with a disease, oh, that poor family. But yet when it comes to alcoholism or disease or addiction, they want to say, well, they chose that. I look at it and I say, no, they didn't. That person is someone's brother, someone's mother, someone's father, someone's son, someone's daughter. So who am I to say we're not going to help them? They need help just like anyone else.
Yes. That's a great way to put it. That's one of the best ways that I have heard it put into words. And I want to thank you for that. That's a great way to put it.
If I wasn't offered treatment for my disease when I was, I'd be dead by now. I know that.
Yeah. I would also add for our audience that depending on what substance we're talking about, once someone becomes addicted, chemical changes begin in their mind and elsewhere that puts them into a survival mode, which basically means I have to have this. And that's where a lot of the bad decisions come from, and there's something in your mind telling you that I need this to survive. And as you said, medically, it's been shown that these patterns are physical, and they can be very hard to overcome without the proper treatment. It's interesting. We talked about hitting rock bottom, and I would certainly want to encourage anyone not to have to hit the bottom floor to get off the elevator. What would be the best way to reach out for help, in your opinion?
A simple phone call to start with. Please don't wait until you're standing in front of a judge asking him for help. There are more resources out there every day between federal, state, local governments. They have put the money in to help get these resources out there. In this world, you can just text help to anything and you'll get connected to a live person. I had made the call in 2016 and I just said, I need help. Mm-hmm. And they helped me. Unfortunately, insurance plays a huge part of everything nowadays. But I know that in 2017, when I was crawling up the steps to Wilson Hall asking, will you people help me? They helped me. I went through Wilson Hall. I completed the IOP program. I completed the aftercare program. I had no insurance, no job, and I did not get a bill for one penny. Mm-hmm. And that sometimes is what scares people away. Well, I can't afford it. I don't know where to find the help. In this world, all you got to do is Google it. Yeah. And it will show you who to call. Just make the call. Don't worry about being judged, because that's what they're there for. Sure. People like me, if I'm on the other end of that phone call and you call and you say, I need help, I'm going to sit there and talk with you and tell you, I know how you feel. Yeah. I've been there. Pretty much everyone you call when you're asking for help, and that is the great thing about this field of work, is the majority of the people that I work with are in recovery. the majority probably of the people that work here at ComQuest are in recovery. So when I say I need help, I can't stop, you're not being judged because they know what it feels like. They've been there.
Yeah. I would only follow that up with saying that, we do have people that help you navigate, the paperwork. We have people that will help you with that. So that is very true. And a lot of times you may say to yourself, this isn't a good time. I'm not sure how my employer is going to take it if they find out. First of all, there's never a better time to ask for help than right now.
Right.
Now is always the best time because, like you said, even in your case, I'll say you were lucky. You were lucky to be just standing in front of a judge. In another situation, somebody's story might end very, very badly.
Yeah.
Bad car accident where you have fatalities, something on that order. Don't let it get to that point. There's people that can help you, and you won't be judged. And that's why we're here. That's why ComQuest and places like that are here. And I would also say too, and I've said this every once in a while, that if you're worried about your job or something, I can't make you any guarantees. There's no guarantee that your employer is going to be 100% supportive. However, in the big scheme of things, if you would go to your employer and say, hey, look, I have a problem. I've contacted ComQuest. I'm going into treatment. I'm getting this under control. I will keep you updated. The chances that something bad is going to happen in comparison with you failing a drug test or getting arrested is much better. Yeah.
And when my first job after I got sober and clean, they would have been like that. They knew my whole story. And I always told them my recovery must come first because you don't understand. If I don't stay in recovery, you're going to be sitting here one weekend. Where's Jack? Where's Jack? This isn't like Jack. Mm-hmm. So when I get sober and clean, I'm actually benefiting the company because if you liked me before and my work was good before, imagine a sober and clean employee, how much better they're going to be for you.
Yes, that is so very true. With a parting shot, I would only say this. Another set of statistics came out regarding opioids and other things. And this last year has been tough on a lot of people. COVID, any type of issue someone may be having, whether it's mental health or something else, sitting in a room staring at the wall is just not a good situation. And unfortunately, a lot of us have been doing that because of all the social distancing and everything else. So from a societal standpoint, there's an issue. A lot of people who are possibly listening to this have something going on in their family. They themselves have an issue. We always talk about hope here. We say hope happens here. What would be your message of hope moving forward in regard to recovery, in regard to people wanting to make their life better?
Well, you kind of started it off with 3 words: recovery is possible. All my life, once I came to the realization that I needed help, I just simply thought, I can't do this. There were many a times where I sat there counting down the minutes. If I can just get through this TV show, because the thought of never being able to drink or take a drug again for the rest of my life, it can be overwhelming for someone. But there is help out there. It can get better. And I've seen it many times. I see it on a day-to-day basis. People walking in for their first day saying, man, I don't know if I can do this. All you got to do is get through today. Mm-hmm. Get through today, and everything else will fall in place. I can't tell you that when I started this, I thought I'd make it almost 4 years. But I do know I sat there every day saying, if I can just get through today. And today turned into another day and another day, and it gets easier. You know, about 2 years ago, my mother was going through some health things, and I thought, you know, if my mom dies, I'm going to drink. I just know I am.
Yeah.
And now I can sit here and I can say, you know, if that were to happen, I can get through it. It gets easier as it goes.
Yeah. Well, Jack, I certainly want to thank you for coming on the podcast today. You spoke in a very heartfelt manner.
Thank you.
I can feel it sitting across from you. I hope the audience heard it too. You know, you talk about how critical it was that you got help when you did. I'm so glad that you did. I have no doubt that the world is a better place with you in it. Anybody listening to this, to hear the sincerity in your voice, knows that.
I always say we might not be able to save everybody, but if today we can help just one.
Yes.
That's one son, one daughter, one brother, one sister. If we can help just one today, we can make a difference in the world.
Yeah. And your sincerity and your desire to do that is well recognized. I mean, I can hear the words and I can feel them. I mean, you very heartfelt, strong soul you are. Thank you very much, Jack. For those of you who are listening to our program today and would like more information, you can visit comquest.org. And once again, that's comquest.org. There's all kinds of information on there about our programs and the situations that we treat. Jack, thank you again for being here.
Thank you, Bill. It was an honor.
I appreciate it very much. Thank you. And to our audience, my name is Bill. This has been the Hope Discovered podcast by ComQuest.